I've seen transformation of other people. I've seen businesses that have been built. I've seen movements that have been created. I've seen opportunities that I've been given that I'm unqualified for. But the why is always exposed after you become who you were called to be, and that is what shapes the habits and behaviors, which is why often people fall off before they even get to the level of consistency that's needed.
Welcome back, everyone, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, I'm Matt Pinelli, joined by the great Garrett Fry, and we have an incredible guest for you today. You guys know that I am very passionate about health and fitness and the correlation with business. So we have the founder of Own It, Justin Roethlingshoefer, here with us today. And this is the program that we ascribe to. I've been working with Own It now for over a year from a blood testing and then coaching perspective. Garrett is involved in it as well. And Justin is the founder of all this stuff. He's written books. He's got a new book coming up called Holy Health, which I'm so excited about. He's touring with Brandon Lake as his personal health coach at the moment, giving keynotes all over the world. Justin, welcome to the show, man. So good to have you, brother.
No, it's so good to be here, guys. I just love both the energy that you guys carry and your servant heart. So this was an easy yes to pop on and have a great conversation that hopefully serves a lot of people.
I love it. I love it.
I think it's fun as we're jumping in here real quick, and just so the audience knows, I've gotten to know Justin here over the period of about the last year and a half, and he is one of the most disciplined, structured people I have ever been around. Watching him and how he runs a schedule, a calendar, and then not only that, but shows up for everything, like makes it all happen. So just to give everybody a little background on who we're listening to right now, Justin, it is impressive, and I just wanted the audience to know that it's not to be taken lightly.
Thank you.
So Justin, I mean, there's a lot of background that we could provide on you and everything, but I do want to just kind of talk about like Own It and how that came to be for you, because you saw this opportunity coming out of the NHL to help people with, this holistic overall better approach to health, but also entrepreneurs, people who are business owners, people who are running businesses who are like, they need a better system that they can correlate with their lifestyle so that they don't have to choose one or the other. It's not being great at business or having good health. The two actually go together. So tell us a little bit about how that, picture came to be with Own It.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it came out of, I think as most businesses do, having to solve a problem for yourself. And as Garrett alluded to, the most disciplined man in the world, I've been told that a few times, and I'm just like, that is definitely not me. I'm not the most disciplined man in the world, but I do have some of the best systems in the world. And I think that ultimately lends itself to creating discipline. And the other thing that I would also say, and we'll touch on both of these, so we'll touch one on systems, but we'll also touch secondarily on, I finally figured out who I was. And when I know who I am, I suddenly now know what that person does. And once I know what that person does, I know how they do it. And once I know how they do it, you realize why later on down the road. And so we can touch on that. I think it's a great teaching point. And there's a chapter in my book that really kind of debunks, I think, what we've learned a lot about from Simon Sinek, which is that you start with why. And I talk about why that model is actually upside down. So coming back to answer your question is, for me, you guys know my story from a young age. I was an overweight kid, became anorexic, had liver and kidney failure at 16 years old, and really went on a journey and a mission to try to figure out how do you get to the root cause of something? Because I don't want to answer the question of how do you treat it, but rather why is it happening? And when I can figure out why it's happening, we can start to implement systems that create inevitable outcomes. And when I stepped into the NHL, started to really build systems that were built off of data. A lot of my postgraduate work was done on heart rate variability and a lot of these key data points that we needed to understand so that we could put them into a powerful system. But as we started to find success, as we started to see positive outcomes, you know what happens with that? You start to speak more, you start businesses, you start to get asked to do more things. And the pressure of the NHL ultimately led me to work more, work more, work more, work more. You can work anywhere, you work everywhere, you work anytime, you work all the time. And led to 4 precancerous polyps in my colon and a precancerous ulcer in my stomach. I was told I wouldn't see 35. And for about a year, I was living as though I would prefer to die any of those days. Just waking up exhausted every day, joint pain, headaches that wouldn't go away. I'd eat anything and I would bloat like a fish. And walk into a room, forget completely why I was in there in the first place. And it was terrible. All while on the outside, just completed a triathlon, had just finished my first High Rocks World Championships, had done a photo shoot for Men's Health. Like these things that you would say, oh no, this guy's the picture of health. All my data that came back from your typical doctor was healthy. Being given $8,000 worth of supplements from a functional doc, said this will clear you up, and ultimately ended up being worse off a month later. And these were the things that I was living with. This is what I had ultimately brought myself to. And it hit me as I was laying in a hotel room in Chicago. And the Lord just said, why don't you do the same thing for yourself that you're doing for your athletes? And it was that moment that it was like no turning back, where I started to live differently, started to adopt certain habits, certain behaviors, started to track certain metrics that when I first looked at them were actually 25% of where they should have been. And was a signal that my body was not adapting well to my habits and behaviors and the lifestyle that I was living. But while I was actually thinking that no, I was doing things the right way. And over the course of a year, healed, became somebody who was thriving, somebody who felt energetic, somebody who was mentally clear. And that was when the call came to basically say, hey, you know what? It's time to step away from the league. And this is not just an athlete problem, but a human problem. And
so what year is this, Justin, that you were going through all this? What year did you have?
Yeah, it was 2019. 2019 was the year that I just had all of this stuff going on. Leading into 2020 was my healing year. And 2021 was when we started the business.
Incredible. Yeah. So I do want to touch on this finding who you are thing first, because I think that is the foundation. We're in the middle of doing our business planning right now. And we just did a session yesterday, which was all about where you are, identifying core values, identifying a mission statement. And someone asked like, well, when do we get to talk about the money? Like, we'll talk about it, but we have to first understand who you are and what you really want to exist as before we can even develop a plan. Otherwise, there's no alignment. But I never really thought of that in correlation with health until you shared it. So talk a little bit about that and why starting with why is actually backwards, and how do we find who we are?
Yeah, so in the Simon Sinek model, first off, I love Simon Sinek, and I think it's great when we start with businesses. And he talks about, there's a huge leadership movement off of this. Obviously, he's built a major career off of starting with why. You've got why in the middle. All of a sudden, when you know why in the middle, then it's the how, and then from the how, it becomes the what. And when you do that in business, you are able to get people drawn in from an emotion. And unfortunately, a lot of emotions are fleeting, right? We make transactional purchases, we make transactional engagements because it's based off of a transaction. Well, in humans, we don't want transaction, we want transformation. And transformation has to be built off of the truth. Truth does not exist in transaction. It only exists in transformation. And so we have to take this model. And as I sat with this, and this is an epiphany that came to me probably about 8 months ago. And I was like, you know what? No, everything starts with who, and his model is upside down and backwards. When you start and you know who you are, and I'm not talking about I'm a son of God, I'm not talking about I'm chosen, I'm talking about like when God created you, like who did he speak into you? Who did he say Matt Benelli was? Who did he say Garrett Frey was? Who did he say? And when you know who you are, you suddenly become convicted on what that person does. And then once you know what that person does, you're going to develop a system for how that person does it. that you're going to be fully committed to. And you probably won't even figure out why you were asked to do these things or why you develop these systems until down the road once it's exposed to you. I'll give you a perfect example here. In the past, I didn't know who I was. And so my greatest fear, and I think I've only shared this on a few shows, my greatest fear was that I would not be impressive. And if I wasn't impressive, I would have no purpose. And if I had no purpose, my soul would die. That was my thought process. So every room I went into, every place I went, every decision I made, I had to be the guy that ran the 100 miles. Why? Not for any other purpose other than that was to make me look impressive. I was the guy that had to do all the workouts. I was the guy that had to wake up and be the first one to the hockey rink and the last one to leave at night. Why? Oh, he's a hard worker because he's impressive. I was the guy that had to walk into a room and have to have the greatest stories and make everybody laugh and be all that because he's impressive. He's somebody who I want to be around. That ultimately led me down the road to destruction and ultimately yielded a lot of the things that I experienced. And it wasn't until I had the revelation that the Lord said, if you can be nothing, I can make it something, and that will be impressive. And that was like, I get goosebumps even when I say it, because that was the epiphany for me, and that was the shift for me. And so as I sat with this for about a year, going, okay, Lord, who did you call me to be? Who did you actually bring me to be? And I based this off the story of Simon Peter. Simon was called to be the rock, but actually at the time he was just a fisherman called to actually build the entire church. How is that going to happen? His identity was that of a fisherman, thus his habits were that of a fisherman. And thus it got him into problems that thus as a fisherman did. And so it wasn't until he was told, no, you are Simon Peter, Cephas, the rock in which I'll build my church. And over the course of 3 years, he developed new habits, new behaviors, new systems in which he, at one point, there's a scripture that says, now you are Peter. There's no turning back. You can't go back. You've become this person because of the habits, behaviors, and systems, and ultimately built the church. The same thing here. I knew who I was ultimately called to become. I keep tips of the spear sharp. I'm a leader of leaders. I'm a catalyst for change. That's who I am. So if I now know who I am, I know how I do things. Or pardon me, I know what I do. What do? I make sure that I'm a man of my word. I make sure that I am a calendared person. I make sure that I am structured. I make sure that I keep myself healthy. I make sure that I give myself quiet time. I make sure that my sleep is sacred. I make sure that what I do on the road, I have the exact same thing that I do at home. Because I am the example that others will ultimately be inspired by or brought forward by. So when I know who I am, I know what I do. Once I know what I do, I know how I do it. And it's only been of recent that I've started to see the why, because I've been put in certain rooms. I've seen transformation of other people. I've seen businesses that have been built. I've seen movements that have been created. I've seen opportunities that I've been given that I'm unqualified for. But the why is always exposed after you become who you were called to be. And that is what shapes the habits and behaviors, which is why often people fall off before they even get to the level of consistency that's needed.
So this goes back to the question that I wanted to ask you as we were getting ready for this. And I said, where is it that most people break down on their health journey and getting themselves into the state that they've always dreamt that they felt like they should be in? And there's always this place where it's like, they're like, I'm making a change, I'm going to do this. And they lose the sight of it. They lose the love of it. And as you're sitting here talking about, because I've always been a big component in Start With Why. I've always, it's different though when you talk about business compared to talking about you, who you are as the soul of the person that you are.
Yeah.
And so you answered the question, is that I think that most people go on their health journey focusing on, I'm doing this because I have this issue, instead of this is who I am, which I so greatly appreciate how you went through that.
You're exactly right, Garrett, because how many people out there are like, why are you eating this way? Well, I need to lose weight. Well, on that simple premise, once you lose the weight, you will stop. Why am I doing this? Well, I've got a marathon coming up. Well, once the marathon's over, you will stop doing this. Why are you eating this way? Well, I have an autoimmune disorder. Well, once you're done and your autoimmune disorder starts, the symptoms go away, the pain point isn't as great, you're going to go back to the way it was before, and then you're going to have flare-ups a year or 2 years later. and you're wondering why this isn't working for you. Well, it's because you've gone off the why. You haven't gone off the who. Why do you eat this way? Because I am a fit person. I am called to be able to carry things. I am a generational changer. I am a culture shifter. I'm a family formation, or I'm a family former. Whatever it is that you see yourself as, once you know who you are, you know what that person does. And that is what you commit to, so that then you know how to do it. And that's where it becomes your identity. It becomes who you truly are at the core. I am a person that I will stay 5 minutes further away from a location I have to go to on the road to have a hotel that has a gym, a sauna, and something that helps me keep my rhythm better. I will pay more for a hotel that I need to than something else, because that's who I am. It's a value that I have. It's who I know I'm created to be. And when I start to do this, it shows up in my life in some other way down the road, because of a place that it's now put me, because of a situation that it's now put me. So when you know who you are, you know what to do. Once you know what to do, you're going to know how to do it. And once you know how to do it, you'll ultimately have it revealed to you as to why that was there in the first place.
I think this is so key when you bring in the element of, how do I marry my health with my personal life, with my business life? And it's like, well, they all need to be together and built on the same identity. And I think when we see people who have, and I've experienced this a lot in my journey with different businesses that I've been associated with, that I've tried to start, is the alignment isn't there because I didn't have that core identity formed, right? And if you figure out that identity for you as a being, then it's a lot easier to then start with why in a business, because we know why we're here after we found out who we are. And so I think I want to double tap on that and say, hey, if anybody listening, if you're struggling with these different areas of your life, let's hit the pause button and say, hey, what is the identity that I have, that I want to have, that I'm called to have? And how do I figure that work out? And so, Justin, when you talk to people about health, so I think a lot of people want to jump forward, because I hear that, I'm like, well, that sounds like a lot of work, but I need to solve this health problem now. Can we just do the health thing and then figure out the me thing later on? How do you kind of help guide people on that when they're like, because I would assume people come to you with, I have this health issue, or I have this health goal that I have. How do you work them backwards to do the personal work first so that the health journey can be better?
So when you think about any health issue, let me caveat that. When you look at the vast majority of health issues, they all stem off of a disordered lifestyle. Name me anything. Anxiety, disordered lifestyle. Obesity, disordered lifestyle. Heart disease, disordered lifestyle. Lung cancer, probably a disordered lifestyle at some point. You look at everything that's come an autoimmune disorder, disordered lifestyle. It all stems back to you haven't been living in how you are called to live. There are disordered habits that have shown up, and the disordered habits always can be tracked back to why you made certain decisions, because you weren't clear on who you were. And it probably came from a life of compromise rather than a life of commitments. And oftentimes we think we're committed, but it's really compromise in disguise. Can give you so many examples where it's like, you know what? I'm going to wake up and every day at 6 a.m. Well, 6 a.m. comes, you hit the snooze button. Well, because I was up late working last night, I did the right thing. Well, that's a disordered pattern, a disordered belief, because you see yourself and who you say you are is, I'm an entrepreneur. So you're going to have the habits of that of an entrepreneur, which leads to burnout, which leads to chronic stress, which leads to staying up late, which leads to dissemination within the family circuit and family sequence, which is why we see the divorce rate so high in entrepreneurs, which is why we see the illness rate so high in entrepreneurs, which is why we see the burnout rate so high in entrepreneurs, which is why we see the absent fatherhood so high in entrepreneurs. All of these things happen because of a consequence of not knowing who we are, because once we know who we are, we know what to do, how to do it, and ultimately discover why at the end of the day. And so seeing this play out, hopefully this is an epiphany for a lot of people and a lot of ahas. But when we come back to this, if we want something to, again, when I started Own It, I can't tell you how many people were like, well, Justin, you're doing this the hard way. Like, just go and sell weight loss. Just go and sell weight loss. You can do this. It's a system. Calorical deficit, move more, and then make sure that they're recovering in a certain way. And then you can have amazing transformations and send them home. Well, I knew in my soul, that's not what I was called to build. That's not what I was called to do. Weight loss is easy. Transformation is hard. And I was called to do the hard thing. And so we built a business that helps transform people, not transact people. Because a transaction of a weight loss is a dime a dozen. It's very easy. I want to create something that transforms you from the inside out and creates a lifestyle that you're not renting, but that you have ownership of, and that you're able to see it parlay into all areas of your life so that you start to step into who you are called to be. And once you're stepping into who you're called to be, the only thing that lives on the other side of that is blessing. And that is what we were called to build and called to do. Thus, we've built the system with that in mind, so that every single engagement is personal. Every single engagement means something to you. And when it means something to you and it's personal, it actually will then stick, not for a season, but that actually creates transformation for life.
Justin, it's fun listening to you because we coach and approach people in a very similar model where, and I'm hearing coaching calls that I have with people where they're like, why can I just not do it? Like, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know why I'm supposed to show up, and whether it's in business or in health. And my answer is always is you're not going to do it consistently because you don't see yourself as somebody who is that. You don't have an identity that I show up that way every single day. And that's who I am to my clients, to my people, to my family. And then you wonder why you can do these short bursts of it, but you can't keep it going long term. So I love even more so going down this path of helping people figure out really at a core of who they are and what they want to do. And then again, you've got this incredible structure to say like, look, we're going to help you become that person. But you approach it from the same way that I like, is like, keep going back to like, let's figure out who you are first, because that's going to be the most important piece to it.
I think the other thing too, Garrett, that's important with this is not only because there's a lot of people that will sit here and dissect the who for years, but there's never any tangible, actionable changes with anything. It's like, who are you? Who are you? And you look for the perfect version of you. Well, that perfect version is never going to exist, which is also why it's deeply married with a heavy, heavy onset of data and technology. Because I need to know what your body is saying. I need to know the language through HRV. I need to know how you're sleeping. I need to know, because we're not going to just guess off a feeling. Feelings are fleeting. You can go and feel really excited after closing a deal, but your habits and behaviors are still garbage. And so you feel like you have energy because you closed a great $100,000, $500,000 deal today, but that's not going to sustain you. That's only going to be a quick hit of something that ultimately will have you burn out at some point anyways. And I want to go back to what you talked about, was because so many people, when they come in, they say, or we say, why did you join Own It? Or why are you here? Well, I have an autoimmune disorder. No. Let's back up. Let's change language. You don't have an autoimmune disorder. You're exhibiting symptoms of an autoimmune disorder. Let's take having it off your identity. That's not who you are. You are a healthy person. You are a strong person. You are somebody who is created to heal, created to thrive. We just have to help you live differently and put you in a different environment with different habits, with different behaviors that your body likes, that your body can adjust to, your body can adapt to, so that we get rid of the symptoms of what you're experiencing. I hear it all the time. I have diabetes. You do not have diabetes. You're experiencing symptoms of diabetes. So now let's start to shape habits, behaviors that actually start to make the diabetes dissipate. Maybe not completely eliminate, but dissipate your reliance on insulin, dissipate your struggles with food, dissipate all of these different habits in your life, because that is where you are. I'm not a consistent person. No, X that. That is not your identity. You've built a $10 million company. You've built a $100 million company. You have a family with an amazing culture. You are a consistent person. You are just not exuding consistent habits in an area that you've never figured out who you are. And so these are the identities we have to strip off, while at the same time looking at this data to start to highly personalize, hyper-personalize, and proactively put new habits, new behaviors into somebody's world that they can adapt in the season they're in and build brick by brick, so that over the course of 6, 12, 18 months, they are transformed and healed from the inside out. Looking back, going, I don't recognize that person from back then. Right, because you're not the same person.
Let's talk about this data piece, because we want to get into HRV. for sure, and particularly how you see it with all the research you've done on it, and also understanding like sometimes people get into the data side and they're like, oh, this is going to be cool, but then they don't know what to do with the data, or they become overwhelmed by the data. Like, and I've had people say, even just from business side, well, but tracking is just, it's too much. Like understanding how many calls I made and all this stuff. Like, I don't want to see that data because it overwhelms me. But if you know how to use the data, then you can be effective with it. And we don't want to just toss it aside. So how do you start with data? What are the data points that we start to look at, that we need to understand and that we need to have a better knowledge of? Because HRV, like when I started wearing a Whoop strap well before I met you, it was like, oh, cool, I got this HRV number, did a little research on what heart rate variability is. And then it was just like, okay, cool, how do I get that number to go up? Right? Without really understanding what are all the components that going to it. I was just like, oh, there's a sleep score thing that I have. So let's talk about HRV and data points here.
Yeah, so for everybody listening, I think this will resonate, is there's an equation in my book, The Power of Ownership, and we talk about how consistent plus intentional habits done over the course of time yield inevitable outcomes. And I don't know about anybody else, but I want an inevitable outcome. And we do this in our businesses all the time. We have a team around us that holds us accountable so that we can be consistent. We have data that drives our highly intentional behaviors, from meetings to where we're investing to where we're spending our money. There's data that drives that, thus it's intentional. We do that over the course of time, and thus it's inevitable that we stay in business. It's inevitable whether it's in a good season, a bad season, a good economy, a bad economy, a hard time, a good time. It doesn't matter, we stay in business. And so when we run off that model, it's inevitable, but the same thing is with our health. But yet we don't have a team around us to hold us consistent or to hold us accountable, to lead us to consistency. And then we don't use data, and thus we are not intentional. Even though we think we are, we're unintentional. And we do that over the course of time, and that also yields an inevitable outcome. It's just not an outcome we desire, but it's an outcome that we fear. And so this is what happens, and this is why data becomes so critical and so important, is that it gives us a guardrail. It gives us a language to understand the body. Because when I say the body was designed to heal, designed to thrive, that's the truth. You have over 30 trillion cells inside our bodies that synergistically work together to make something happen. Every 84 days, 500 million of those become completely brand new, completely regenerated, completely restored. That means every 5 to 7 years, you become a completely brand new cellular human being. Now, whether your cells thrive or whether they decay over the course of that day-to-day 84-day cycle is solely dependent upon the habits and behaviors and environments that you put your body in daily. And so all of a sudden, if we go, okay, cells are critical, we have to make sure we have cellular health. What do cells need? They need 3 things. They need oxygen, they need nutrients, and they need the ability to detoxify. Those are the 3 things they have to have, non-negotiables. If they don't have those 3 things at the level in which is required, it starts to cause the cells to decay and causes stress. Well, wouldn't it be amazing if there was a language to understand the stress inside the body on a day-to-day basis, not the stress that pulls your hair out because you're late to work and stuck in traffic, or it's a full contact sport getting the kids to school. I'm talking about the stress that happens behind the scenes. That's the cost of doing business and waking up in the morning that we are completely unaware of. And the language of stress in the body is heart rate variability. And that's where we start. Heart rate variability is the single most important metric to understanding the long-term health of our body, because it is truly the language of how it's adapting to stress that we're putting on from our habits, behaviors, and lifestyles daily.
So I've been fascinated by HRV. I wasn't initially until about a year ago. And it's funny, so 2 years ago, my wife got me an Oura ring, which I've been wearing, and I've been, keeping track of my data and stuff, and half the numbers in there, I have no idea. I mean, there's the sleep score. That's an easy one to understand. Okay, I feel crappy today. Yeah, it's because your readiness score. Then, I feel crappy. I get it. I can look at it. I see it, it's funny knowing the numbers, and just knowing those alone makes you want to act differently, where it's like, just because I know that number, it's like all of a sudden it's like, you know what, I want to fix that. So I'm going to go to bed a little bit earlier. I'm going to drink more water today. Just knowing, it's an amazing thing.
It's a feedback loop.
But HRV is one of those ones that I have no idea what this means. Everybody keeps telling me how important it is. Everybody keeps saying, if you're below this level, be very careful. I'm consistently in that be very careful zone. And what makes it even more annoying is my daughter calls me. Now she is 21 and she's an athlete and all this stuff and meal preps every single meal for every single aspect of her day. And she rolls in and like shares her HRV with me. And I'm like, go away. Like, like I can't even figure out what to do with mine. And you're like coming in bragging about yours. What have you found? I mean, obviously, I love the way you said this is the stress that your body is dealing with internally and how it's dealing with stress. What have you seen with HRV when somebody can get control of it or can start making adjustments in it? What is the kind of the initial response you see from the body?
So the first thing I want everybody to hear and everybody to know and understand is if you're not seeing an increase in HRV, it's that you truly don't know the language of your body yet. And there's something still to be learned and there's something still to be understood, because it is inevitable that if we give the body adequate oxygen efficiency, optimal detoxification of the body, and then the nutrients at the cellular level that is ultimately required, it's inevitable that we start to see HRV increase, because the body will have a greater capacity to adapt to what's there. And so when we want to see improvements, and I can give this kind of baseline number here. So if you're 50 years old, you should see an HRV average of somewhere between 45 and 65. I choose 50 because I'm guessing most of the people that are listening to this are going to be somewhere in that 40 to 60 range. And so they have that now understanding, okay, I should be 45 to 60 on my HRV score. And what that is saying is that I have an adequate level that my body is adapting to the stress that I'm placing on it, and thus I have capacity to do more. It's plain and simple, as easy as it gets. Now, when we actually back up and we start to look at things in a little bit of a different way and go, okay, this is interesting. How do I actually improve HRV now? How do I actually make sure that I'm moving in this direction? Those three things all have a unique language to them. So oxygen efficiency. The language of oxygen efficiency is a VO2 max. And so when we think about VO2 max for men has to be 45 or greater, for women 38 or greater. Now, does that mean if you have a VO2 max below 45 that you're going to die? No. But what it does mean is that your body is working harder to get oxygen to your body, to your cells, in order to function on a day-to-day basis. And what happens with a lot of men, I'll speak to the men first, is they will be like, oh, I'm sure my VO2 max is pretty good. It's 38. It's good. It's higher than normal. Sure. But realize that there's still a cost to doing business when you wake up in the morning that your body's having to adapt to, that you're compromising. Just know that you're making a compromise by not doing the things necessary in order to get that up to a 45 or greater. And if you get to a 45 or greater and you could realize how good you could feel, you would never want to go back. And so you would start to add certain habits and behaviors to your day that you're committed to, because I am somebody who loves and appreciates their body. I am somebody who, remember going back to who, makes decisions based off of truly wanting to live well for a long period of time. And thus I make certain decisions. But we make constant compromises. You cannot commit and compromise at the same time. You're either committing or compromising. And oftentimes we're living a life of compromise in disguise. And so VO2 max, 45 or greater, 38 for women or greater. And so if it's below that number, that means that there are greater stresses on the body to get oxygen to the cells in order to operate. If Matt and I both have a VO2 max test, Matt has a 60, I have a 40, Matt's higher than mine, thus he's greater efficiency at using oxygen. Whose body is it more stressful on doing this podcast? Mine. Simply just sitting. I'm not struggling. I'm not out of breath. I'm not dying, but it's my cells are having to work harder to get oxygen into my cells just sitting here. Sleeping, same thing, playing with kids, doing groceries, all the daily tasks, it's more stressful. Thus, it's going to pull down heart rate variability. The second thing we talked about is the ability to detoxify, detoxification. There's something in the brain called the glymphatic system. The glymphatic system is only active during deep stages of sleep, REM and slow wave. And so if we're not getting deep stages of sleep, REM and slow wave sleep, then that means we're not detoxifying, because the glymphatic system is only active during those times. And so all the toxins that you've been eliminating all day long, everything that's been piling up from the food choices you've made, the lack of hydration you've had, the air that you've been breathing, everything that's come in that your body's systematically built to detoxify with doesn't have an elimination pathway. And thus you're not detoxifying, you're recycling. And so sleep quality becomes the language to how well we detoxify. We know that 38 to 50% of our total sleep time has to be spent in slow wave and REM sleep in order to get adequate levels of detoxification. Then we can start to talk about, okay, well, if we're not getting those levels of deep sleep every single night, or sleep quality every single night, pardon me, what actions start to come into our day? And that's when we go, no, I am somebody who values my sleep. I am somebody who sets boundaries up. I am somebody who puts things in place, and thus develops the habits and the systems that allow me to carry this out long term. And as a consequence, HRV increases. And the third is nutrients. And we do cellular testing to ultimately determine this, is what nutrients are getting into the cell. Very different than the serum testing, understanding if you have a illness or if there's an organ issue, very different than those tests. We're looking at cellular testing. It's still a blood panel, but it looks at what's inside the cell, what nutrients are getting from the serum into the cell for the body to use. And that starts to give us an understanding of, okay, how do I supplement differently? How do I have to eat differently? Are there certain things that, even though they're not bad for me, maybe having a bagel and a coffee first thing in the morning actually is not giving me the nutrients that I need every single day? Hey, you know what? Maybe eating at 9 o'clock at night and just is not getting me into the deep stages of sleep that I need, but also not allowing me to break down the food adequately. And thus, I'm not only detoxifying incorrectly, but I'm also not absorbing the nutrients at the level I need. And so when we start to see this and we start to supplement intentionally and we start to eat intentionally, you become somebody who values your energy. You become somebody who is intentional with what they're eating and drinking every single day, because you value what's on the other side of that. And inevitably, HRV increases. And so that's the language of each of those three components that the cells need that impact and influence HRV, that inevitably go up. And inevitably, when that HRV goes up, you start to feel better. You start to sleep deeper. You start to have more energy. You start to be more mentally clear. You start to actually lose the weight that you're wanting. Your autoimmune disorder starts to dissipate. All of a sudden, the medications you're on, you can start coming off of them. All this stuff starts to happen. So what you desire is on the other side of what you're resisting. But you don't know what you're resisting until you have data start to make it clear, because clarity is kindness. And that's what we aim to do for every single person.
I love the clarity is kindness. It's so interesting because we live in this world where we're trying all the different diets, right? And that's, before meeting you, I'd tried all the diets, tried all the different ones, and, did those things, did the blood testing to see what was the difference of impact on all those things, tracked the weight, muscle mass, those types of things, which, it's not bad necessarily. Like, it's like, okay, cool, I'm starting to figure things out, but there wasn't a mission of clarity necessarily. It was more of a, what are the results that I can achieve from that feeling aspect versus a sustainable, data-driven, I know I can operate at that, because I also think sometimes our feelings kind of mess with us, right? I've had mornings where my Whoop will say, hey, you're recovered, but I'm feeling a little tired. And if I leaned into the tired of the feeling, maybe I wouldn't have had the opportunity to really show up that day, because it went away eventually, right? It was maybe just the way that I woke up, or maybe the stage of sleep that I was in, or maybe the fact that the alarm woke me up versus the natural sleep rhythm or something like that. So Justin, for somebody who's now operating in business, comparing these things and looking at this approach you just laid out, what have you seen when people start to take that control of all those three aspects which build into the HRV? What have you seen happen in people's personal lives and their business lives? The energy they've been able to put out.
I don't even have the I don't have the time to go into it all, but it's like that could be a podcast all on its own. And I think this is the cool thing, right? Is all of a sudden, because we are not, and we struggled with this as a business. I'll be honest with you. When we're talking about doing testimonials and you see all these other companies throwing up, the person was 195 pounds and now they're 165 pounds. And look at the six-pack abs and the muscles they have versus what they didn't have before. Like, that's something you can tangibly see. And even though oftentimes after 12 to 18 months, those are the outcomes, it's not the thing that we're selling. We're selling a holistically transformed life. And that's where you get our testimonials from people is, I did not know how good I could feel. I did not know that I could actually go and work a full day and then go to my kids' game, coach them, feel good, be present, be attentive, be a father that's involved, and have a better sex life with my wife, because I now have all the energy that I need and my body's running the way that it needs to, and I feel like I can actually win in all areas. But it started with you actually figuring out who you were, putting ownership in these areas, and starting to create a life by design and not living the life that the world told you had to live. And so when people start to put this in place, it's the word that I would come back to is there is a peace and a freedom in their day-to-day life, because they are no longer having to try to continually manipulate their thought process. They're no longer having to negotiate with themselves and spend energy doing this. There's a peace and a freedom because they know what they've said yes to. Their yes is their yes, their no is their no. A line's in the sand, and they're not willing to step over it because they know what their body requires, because they know who they are. And when they know who they are, they know what to do. When they know what to do, they know how to do it. When they know how to do it, they see the why later. Oh my gosh, my family is thriving. Oh my gosh, my business is thriving. Oh my gosh, I'm leading better. Oh my gosh, the culture in my organization is changing. Oh my gosh, now all of a sudden people are following my ways. Oh my gosh, suddenly now we're not doing meetings sitting in a boardroom, but actually we're doing walking meetings together, and we're getting more done, and we're feeling more vibrant, and the output of my team is better. How did this happen? Well, it started with you, the leader, saying, I'm putting a line in the sand, and this is who we are as an organization. This is who we are as a leadership team. And thus we're going to model what this looks like for everybody else, because we want them to see what's on the other side that is so much better. And it's not about a transaction of doing something. It's about a transformation that is truly soul deep.
So here's what's really fun about the space that we're in right now. So obviously, Matt, last 6 months, you went through Justin's program. You are going through it again. I'm going through it. I'm committing to it this time also. So we're going to go through this together, which I'm grateful that we're going to be able to go on this journey together, share our results, share our numbers, talk with our group. We've got a group of people going through it with us. Through Life at 10 Tenths, which I'm super excited about. And Justin, what I'm just going to put on the table right now, I think it'd be fun in give or take 6 months, we circle back around on this, because just as you said, when you said like, what will you see that's different? You're like, that's a whole nother thing.
That's all podcast itself.
Oh yeah, we're going to be able to have an incredible conversation and share our results, our differences, what we've seen, how our numbers have changed, how we feel, and be able to really resonate on just a different level here. So
well, I want to share one thing too, that just in this past month, my wife has been a little sick, battling a cold, nothing major, but it creeps into that. Let's have a little extra sleep because we need some more recovery time and all those kinds of things. And she's like, how are you not getting sick? And I was like, well, I've been working the past 6 months plus in optimizing these things, which I'm still not the best at, believe me. And Shauna, our coach, knows that. Like, I've gone through periods where I haven't been as focused as I should be. But you need that time to develop those habits. And I was like, my immune system works better. And I have the data to show it. And that's where little things I can fight off a lot quicker. Now, does it mean I'm never going to get sick? I don't know. Hopefully, I mean, that would be awesome, but there are things that come in. But if I can fight the little things, I can show up for my business more often. I can show up for this podcast more often. Garrett and I have not missed a group coaching call yet. And that's because we stay on the forefront of making sure that we have the ability to show up. And so I got to say thank you to you, Justin, and your crew for helping me get there. And I'm excited for Garrett to go through this program. And if anybody listening is like, hey, that sounds like something I want to get involved in, like, reach out to us, because we're doing these cohorts with Own It. But also, Justin, if they want to find you and learn more about Own It, what's the best place for them to go to do that?
So they can go to ownitcoaching.com, and they can literally book a call right there with our team to really just go through what this looks like for them. What is the program actually? What does it actually entail? What does it actually look like? Because a lot of people, once they actually see it, they're like, my gosh, I didn't realize it was this comprehensive. I didn't realize that it's not just testing and then a PDF. No, you actually have a team of people that you're building a relationship with that are looking at your data 24/7, that are actually giving you the frameworks and walking you through this and going on a journey with you. And I think that in and of itself wakes a lot of people up and is very cool. And Matt, I want to add to your story because obviously I'm on the road with Brandon Lake and touring heavily. If you've ever gone on a tour, ever done anything like this, you're sleeping on a tour bus and you're up late. I'm out of my typical routine. I'm usually going to bed around 12:30, 1 o'clock, just after everything is done. And then we're getting up, or I'm still operating a business and doing these things. So I'm getting up still at 6:30, 7 o'clock, a little bit later than I typically do, but 6:30, 7 o'clock to make sure that I'm operating well within the business. And there's a lot of workers, like it's a team of 140 that make this thing happen. And there are people who are setting up the stage, tearing it down, and there's sinus infections going on. There's colds all going around, and myself, Brandon, the team, the band, nobody's gotten sick. And I don't say that because it's like, oh, well, you guys just aren't engaging with them. No, we're in close quarters. We're in close proximity. We're all in and around the same thing. We're eating the same things. We're on the same schedules. It's that we've chosen to live a life that's different according to the data and according to what is there and knowing who we are. Thus, when Brandon knows that who he is a humble revivalist. And thus, what does a humble revivalist do? Prepares his body so that every single night when he's got 20,000 people in that arena, he's at his best and he's able to give the opportunity. And thus, he now has a system that is able to keep that structured. And why do we do this? Because every single night people are getting saved. Every single night people are seeing an opportunity to have an experience and an encounter that creates a true change in how they operate. And so that's kind of a last minute kind of overarching thing, but it kind of builds on your testimonial, Matt, is you truly, when your body functions at a higher level, cold and flu season is not a season. Cold and flu season is something that was ultimately created because of how we live.
And Justin, just to add into like your experience with this, and I know we're gonna have to wrap for time, but it's interesting is that when you are a presenter, when you are somebody that's leading an environment like that, it's not that you're just around that many people every night. Like you are, and you said close proximity, but you are shaking hands. Everybody else is just spending time in that room. They're just sharing space side by side, maybe arm's distance. But you as a presenter on the level that you are shaking hands, you are hugging, you are getting way closer than you get to normal people on a normal everyday basis. And to have your body be able to go like, yeah, we're not bothered by that. Like, that's fine. You keep that to yourself is a true testament because you're way closer quarters than just in close quarters.
1,000%.
Yeah, that's very true.
Justin, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to coming back and doing this again and sharing more information and more of what your journey is and what you're doing. But so many things that you shared on people's health journeys. I hope you were taking notes out there and listening, because I have a whole page about how I'm going to bring into my world with the people that I coach and work with, because there are just so many similarities between any level of success that you get between your health and your business and your life and your relationships. So I want to say thank you to your time, and anybody who's listening right now, if you want to be more part of our world, go check us out on YouTube. You can subscribe there. You can come and check us out at Life at 10 Tenths. We have our business planning currently going on. You can sign up for that as we're preparing your best business for 2026. And one last time, Justin, thank you. Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Justin,
you guys.
Always a pleasure, my friend. We'll see you soon.